Monastery, which is more of a set of 4 colleges. 3 of them have paintings of the Wheel of Rebirth. So Loseling, Etrebung, Gonang College, Etrebung Monastery, and Nyakpa College, Etrebung Monastery, all have paintings of the Wheel of Rebirth right outside their main assembly halls. Sera Monastery, just outside of Lhasa. Ungkarchode Monastery, recently opened. Mindroling, moving further west in central Tibet, monastery, a very weathered painting. Punsokling, even more weathered, and you see it's just had a roof put over it, and that's it. The back entrance to what was an assembly hall. In Shigaze, Tashi Lumpo Monastery, and I think I have one of Sakya Monastery. That's not the painting of the wheel, that's me looking at the painting with some of the monks at the monastery. So pretty far west in central Tibet. So, if that's some idea of the spread and variety of paintings of the Wheel of Rebirth, what can we say finally in conclusion? I guess it's kind of obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway. Ideas about rebirth and life after death and the connectedness of different kinds of beings, the connectedness between gods and humans and animals and hell beings and ghosts, these kinds of ideas were really central to Buddhism in the pre-modern world, all across Asia. This is a little different than the opinion of many modern Buddhists. So if you are a Buddhist, I'm a scholar. I'm speaking not as a spiritual or religious teacher. I'm speaking as a scholar and historian of Buddhism. You may feel quite differently about Buddhism. Many modern Buddhists, Western, educated, many modern Buddhists in Asia believe that Buddhism should not focus on ideas of rebirth and afterlife and the other world and funerary rituals. They believe, say in the words of D.T. Suzuki, that Buddhism is primarily an inner spiritual experience or a philosophy of life that shouldn't have anything to do with ritual or statues or belief about next life. Or they follow what another modern Buddhist, the current Dalai Lama, has said. And this is a statement, I think he's said this a couple times, and he said so in response to questions from scientists and his Western audience. I don't think he said so to a Tibetan audience. We Buddhists are scientific, and if science proves that rebirth does not happen, then we'll still be Buddhists. We'll accept that new finding of science, and we'll still be Buddhists. That's not possible in pre-modern Buddhism, to deny that idea entirely. So I'm suggesting instead that not that modern Buddhists are incorrect, but that teachings about rebirth and the afterlife were central to most forms of Buddhism, at least in the pre-modern world. Where we draw that line, pre-modern and modern, may be a little difficult. A second thing I have to point out is that in this case, a canonical text, I don't have a good slide of my canonical text, so we'll leave D.T. Suzuki there as our canonical text instead. What's the relationship between text and image? I deal with this question a little bit in the last chapter of my book, but let me say something a little different today. The text, it turns out, was important for the paintings of the Wheel of Rebirth. It did not get put directly into paintings, but many of the paintings include these verses on impermanence and renunciation in them. So the text is in many ways included in the painting itself. We saw that text box in almost every painting of the Wheel of Rebirth. They're even there in the sculpted form in Da Baodingshan. So there is a strong relationship between text and image. Furthermore, the text mandates where the painting is supposed to be painted, and most paintings are located exactly where the Buddha instructs that they be placed, at the outside of the temple. Now, what's inside the temple varies tremendously from one temple to the next. So there's a tremendous amount of variation, at the same time that there are some important continuities, and that's one of them. And the text in particular, in which we find this mandate, this command from the Buddha to paint the Wheel of Rebirth, is found in only one Vinaya text, in only one set of rules for monks. Is found in only one Vinaya of one sect of Buddhism. But it happens that that sect of Buddhism was the only sect whose Vinaya was known in Tibet, whereas China knew 5 other complete sets of rules for monastic living. So my usual joke about it with engineers is to say that, or mathematicians, is to say that the Wheel of Rebirth is, in China, it's only 1/5 canonical, because only 1 out of 5 Vinaya canons contain it, whereas in Tibet it's 100% canonical, because the rules for monks are unanimous. There's only one set of rules, and they all say you must paint the Wheel of Rebirth in temples. Finally, let me talk just briefly about why. Let me return again to the question of why there are relatively few paintings of the Wheel of Rebirth historically in China, and relatively more outside of China. I've already suggested one reason when I talked about the importance of the Vinaya text. China did not pay much attention to the particular Vinaya text that contains this instruction. Chinese Buddhist monks followed other rules. But furthermore, their artists had different interests. Think about it. The Wheel of Rebirth is the Wheel of Rebirth is an analytical tool. It provides a standardized teaching device with different parts of it that can be numerically designated, the 12-fold chain of dependent origination and the 12 links, the 5 segments, the 3 poisons, and so forth. It encourages scholastic discussion. Its point is to analyze and step back from life. By contrast, in China, interest seems to have been focused on the upper and the lower realms, but not on the whole circle itself, or on the parts of the circle. So let's start with the lower realms, where Chinese artists and Chinese religious culture focused. This is a well-known painting of a deity in the center who brings aid to people in hell. His name in Sanskrit is Kshitigarbha, in Chinese Dizang Pusa, in Japanese Jizo Bosatsu. This deity specializes in helping people who are reborn in hell, and the deity, it's unclear, the deity either keeps in line these guys on the side, or the deity is there to soften their impact. But these are the 10 kings of hell, and they have particular